Hi, how's everybody doing? Are we good today? It's beautiful outside. And if I had my druthers, I would just be sitting down with each of you, sharing a cup of coffee or whatever. I don't know. I know there's some of you who don't drink coffee in this room, and I I love those like intimate connections and talking face to face. And so sometimes this is a little bit uncomfortable for me because really what I want to do is just sit down with you and have a conversation. It also, I don't like being the one to say all the words. Like I just feel like I I don't know. I just don't like it. And yet today when I was preparing for this and thinking about this, these are words that probably a lot of you have heard me say maybe in conversation. And so it may feel a little bit repetitive, but it's really just my heart to you. I am 55 years old. Yep, that's 55, big 5 5. And there's some things that I still have to learn, but there also are things that I've learned through these 55 years. And a part of what I'm sharing is a part of those things. I consider myself a late bloomer. Here's a for instance. I loved when I was a young girl into high school writing notes for my friends. I just loved just saying, "You're the bestest friend. I think you're so great." And I would send them, I'd give them to people in the hallway, I'd put them in their locker. And then when I was in college, someone finally told me that I spelled friend wrong. All those years of sending little notes to just encourage my friends, and they never told me that I was spelling friend wrong. So now I question even if they were true friends. But I'm a late bloomer. Spelling came late. A lot of things kind of came late in life for me. And yet, I'm okay with that. I'm okay that I'm still trying to figure it out because I think really we all are in a lot of ways. And as a young woman, I went to Bible college. That's where I met Jake. And the circles of people around me, man, they were going to change the world. They just had big purpose. And they had like these amazing skills to do these things. And they felt called to certain areas of the world or certain fields. And I just didn't have that. I was in awe of them, but I was also really okay with not having these big goals. Because there was just nothing I was really passionate about. I'm probably more of a passionate person now than I was as a young woman. But it's still, my passion revolves around puppies and ice cream and coffee talks and Jesus, my passion lies in appreciating small things. So in college, I got a degree in the only thing I thought I had some talent in, which was music. I do have a music degree, and that talent is all gone. Um, Turns out it's not like riding a bicycle. If you don't practice, you don't keep it. So I did. I got a degree in music, and then I married a boy who wanted to be a good man. That's that guy. And we started our life together. And really, when I was looking at life, I was hoping just like my big goals were hoping to make life a little bit better for those around us, to do my best, to be a friend, to pay our bills. That's a big one, paying those bills, and enjoy the good days and survive the bad days. And so compared to those around me, especially at Bible college, this kind of purpose and this kind of life felt a little small and ordinary. But for me, this was the kind of life that I hoped for and prayed for. And so my goal was just to take each day at a time, and the whole bloom where you're planted thing, it's real. And you might be expecting me to share how life experiences and God's providence turn life and purpose into something really bold and exciting. And if you know the details of my life, there's some doors and some situations that I've walked through that have kind of blown my mind. Like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. This is so exciting. This is so fulfilling. And then there's also been those moments where I've just really been crushed. And they're just crucible moments. But what I've learned through it all is the Lord has made everything for its purpose. The Lord has made everything for its purpose. And here's the thing. Here I am again at the big 5-5, and my life purpose is still the same as that young girl in Bible college. To make life a little better for those around me, to be a friend, to do my best, to be able to pay the bills, to enjoy the good and survive the bad, to take it one day at a time. And so that might seem like a small and ordinary life, but the Lord has given it great purpose. And a little bit, I want to share that with you today and how He has made it sacred. Purpose is not what we do, but why we do what we do. It's the reason. And I like knowing the reasons for things. And I also like knowing the history of things. And so when I started thinking about purpose and how we use our days this time we've been given here on earth, I started to do some digging. I got the Googler out, and I started doing some digging, and I even went into some like really hardcover books. I love a good book. And I was digging on the word purpose. Like, where do we get this word? I think Jake and I love the history of things, like sayings that we have. Like, where did this start? Like, we're just like, whoa, this one little saying that has now lasted generations, and it started in this one moment. And so looking up the word for purpose, I was surprised. I was like, that's surprising. And tell me, like, you can tell me later if you're surprised with this, but I want to go back a little bit, and we're going to start about 3,400 years ago. Okay, so everybody put, we're going in the Wayback Machine. We're going back 3,400 years, and we are a people recently freed from slavery, entering a sacred covenant with our rescuer. Oh, the one true God. And so our leader, Moses, proposes the details to us of this covenant, and we're listening, and we're not really, it's kind of like, I guess when someone proposes, a lot of times there's a big yes, but you often don't know what you're saying yes to because you haven't lived life together yet. And so like, a young bride saying yes to her groom, we, the children of Israel, we're hearing this about this covenant that God wants to make with us, to be in relationship with us. And we just say yes. We're not thinking about the cost of it. We're not thinking about what it really looks like. We're just yes, 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 God. And up to this point, God's presence has been with us. And if you've read in the Old Testament, you hear about how by day He is with us through a pillar of a cloud, and by night He's with us through a pillar of fire. Pretty amazing stuff. And so He's leading us again. We're these people 3,400 years ago. He's leading us through the desert by a cloud and by fire. And each day as it came, He shows up for us. Each day His presence is so real to us because we can see that cloud. We can see that fire. And so with this new covenant and our response of yes, He asks us to do something else. He says, hey, I want to build something to symbolize my constant presence with you. And so He says we're going to build something together. And it's this beautiful temple. And He gives us specific instructions. And this place, man, it is fancy. And I am curious, when I meet God face to face, I want to ask Him about why He loves pomegranates so much. Because if you read in the Old Testament, He likes pomegranates. He wants those decorating a lot of different things. And so He likes pomegranates. He gives us an intricate design on how to build this place that will symbolize His presence. And we are talking fine, fine things, fine linens, metals, gemstones, wood covered in gold, special oils and spices. This is a really, really bougie place. And I've got a little picture of it as we enter into the holy place. Look at that. Like, wouldn't you love if our church looked like that? I don't know. The tapestry is I could do that. And so God is saying, hey, to us, He's like, I want you to build this place. And so we build it. And again, this is to symbolize His constant presence among His people. A sacred space where This place, the holy place, is where priests would go and they would practice being with God. And again, we know from history, whether you believe that Jesus who is who he says he is, this was a real part in Israel's history, a part of our history. And so this place would be the place where priests would go in and their day-to-day relationship with God was lived out in this place. And again, this holy place contained furniture, and we have our golden table. You know, I have a little vintage business that, like, candelabra would sell really well at a pop-up. I mean, there's some really nice pieces in here. But probably the most important thing in this room, with all its magnificent gold and just furnishings, sitting on the table was simply bread. And this is actually where we get our word for purpose, is in this bread. And so that looks delicious, right? Who doesn't like a good pita bread? This is what they would call showbread. And our word for purpose started here. The Hebrew word for showbread is the origin word for purpose. And at first glance, you might be saying, well, how does that become our root word for this word that we put a lot of emphasis on? Like, what's your reason for doing this? What's your purpose in life? What's your calling? Well, let me tell you more about this bread. 12 loaves were made once a week on the Sabbath, each loaf representing one of the tribes. And it was set forth before God, again, in this very sacred space. And it was carefully arranged. Again, God gave us instructions for this. The bread was placed on the golden table and was offered to God as a representation of the ongoing covenant between God and his people. And at the end of the week, it was replaced. And then the priests would eat it, and that would be their nourishment for that day. This bread, there for each day, as it came, it was a constant. And so, again, this is where we get our root word for purpose. And so let's look at what these things, these pieces of bread, have in common with what we understand about purpose, about calling. And so showbread was set forth, and you can go to the next slide. It was set forth, so it was placed intentionally. It was perpetually offered and displayed before God, a symbol of presence and provision. And so showbread and purpose actually do have a lot in common. Bread, something so ordinary, turns into something of purpose because of where it was placed and why it was placed. And I think that's really beautiful. And ordinary things are beautiful. When I think of my own purpose this way, it inspires me to look at the small moments of my life with expectant eyes. Looking at the things he puts before me in places that I already am, the whole bloom where you're planted. And I look for those moments where I can show up and do what I'm supposed to do because of who he is. Again, it's not about what I am doing, but where I've been placed and why I do what I do. And so if you've seen those memes, like what my mom thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what I think I do, what I actually do, I feel like all of us in our life, we have those moments, right? Like everybody has an assumption of what your life looks like and why you do it. And what I love about God is he is intentional, he is a master planner, and he purposefully puts us in places to be used. And often he's the only one who really knows all that we're doing. But looking at the things he puts before me, the places I already am, trusting that if I do it as unto him because of my love for him, those moments are what I'm made for. And it can be the simplest of tasks and the most exciting. And yet if I do it for him, it's good. It's that bread. And I had an experience with doing something pretty normal that ended up being one of the most transformational moments of purpose in my life. Many years ago, my parents were going through a really, really tough ministry situation, and our kids were young, and we had one car, and so I took the Greyhound. I love the Greyhound. I know, I take good naps on a Greyhound. So I took the Greyhound. They were living in Milwaukee at this point. I took the Greyhound there, and I just spent time with them. Jake stayed home. He took care of the kids. And so they were just going through this hard season. And so I just spent time with them. And sometimes that looked different. You know, there would be moments where they really needed to talk, and we would just sit. There would be moments where we just needed to be distracted, so we'd watch, I don't know, some action movie that my dad wanted to watch. Sometimes, you know, it just was like saying, I am really, really sorry this is happening. I couldn't fix it for him. I couldn't fix it, but I was just there. And sometimes that meant just like eating a whole bunch of ice cream together and enjoying it. And so, considering the circumstances, it didn't feel like I was really helping that much. Again, it was a really tough situation. But because I was their daughter and my love for them, I wanted to show up for them. And I was just trying to make their hard days better. Elisha, he's so sweet. So my final morning with them, as I was getting ready to head to that awesome Greyhound bus to go home, I just remember I was getting ready, and I suddenly felt this overwhelming sense of joy and satisfaction. Like I was so filled. And it was one of those moments where I felt God's voice in a way that I've only a handful of times in my life. And I felt him say, this is one of the reasons why I made you, was just to be there with them that week. And it was one of the most profound moments of purpose. Again, I wasn't doing anything great or exciting. In fact, it was really hard in some ways because I couldn't do anything great or big to help them. And so through the years, I have learned that my most joy-filling, soul-satisfying moments of purpose happen not when I am seen, but when I am truly trying to see others. Life becomes so empty when it just becomes about us. It really is. And purpose that is satisfying and filling is always about him and those he has called us to love. Like that bread sitting in that ancient tabernacle, we are made special and purposeful because we are created by him, to be used by him, to be sustained by him, and he specifically places us exactly where we need to be to have that kind of purpose. And so right now in your life, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be. And I've had many seasons where I'm wondering, when is the next thing coming? When is this prayer going to be answered? But I can guarantee you that he has a purpose for where you are right now. And with looking at life, accepting the ordinary and even just the hard things, I think we have some gifts that I want to talk about. And this is really 55-year-old Michele talking big here. Because these are the things, like my mother's heart, like as I look at myself in this church, I look at myself as a mother to this church. And there are several in this room who are mothers to this church. And so a mother's heart, like we so want to take what we've learned and just put it in our kids so they don't have to learn the lessons the hard way that we have. Like that's one of the things of being a mother that is hard for me, because I wish I could just be like, okay, here, do this way and everything will be fine, which is not actually how it goes, because at the end of the day, I'm still mostly a daughter. I'm still mostly learning and becoming, and I've just learned some things as being a daughter and a mother that I want to share. So, in a world that cheers us on to become more and more today, I want to encourage you to remember that smallness and simplicity are gifts. There once was a man named John, and his name, we call him John the Baptist. I don't know why we call him the Baptist. Because he baptized? Oh, okay, that's not his last name. Okay, his name was John, but you don't know his last name, who had quite a following. He was a really big deal. But there was this new guy in town named Jesus, and like we still do, if someone comes into our territory and kind of threatens us, we're like, "Hey, watch out. This is my place." And so, John's guys see this Jesus guy on the scene, and they're like, "Hey, John, what's going on? This guy, he's starting to take some of your followers. Some people are starting to listen to him more than you." And John, who knew what was really going on, he had a response. And he had the best responses to things. And this one is one of my favorites. And John is using the analogy of a wedding. John replied, "No one can receive anything unless God gives it from heaven. You yourselves know how plainly I told you I am not the Messiah. I am only here to prepare the way for him. It is the bridegroom who marries the bride, and the bridegroom's friend is simply glad to stand with him and hear his vows. Therefore, I am filled with joy at his success. He must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less." We are not the main characters in our stories. He is. And one thing, I don't know, I've been in several weddings, and if I showed up as a bridesmaid to a wedding expecting it to be all about me, there's a problem there. The first wedding our daughter was in, she was the flower girl. And at 5, she really thought the whole day was about her. And it was hilarious. And it was about her in my eyes. But the reality was, that day, I just remember the bride being really annoyed. And I was like, that's fair. Yeah, she can be annoyed with her attention-seeking flower girl. But sometimes I think we show up in life and we are only thinking, we've got this main character energy that we're working with. And that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to be the main characters in our stories. And I've just learned that it's so much better to accept that I am not the main character in my story. Like John the Baptist said, he must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. More Jesus, less me, big God, small Michele. And so, some of the gifts that I found in smallness and simplicity, and I really feel like this is the way God has called us to have this abundant life that he promises. One of the gifts is gratitude. Smallness helps us be grateful and live those everyday moments to the fullest. I love those everyday moments. I just love them. I love them. Like lately, I'm in love with toast. I know. I love toast and jelly. I love it. And I have to tell Jake this every day. Like even if he's not at home, I'll text him and be like, "I love toast and jelly." It's just so good. Thank you. Thank you, Andreas. And as I've taken this mantle of trying to be grateful for the small and the ordinary, I find myself filled with gratitude over things that many years I've taken for granted. Gerald Sitzer, in his book, A Grace Disguised, describes life after experiencing catastrophic loss. It's a beautiful book. If you are grieving, I strongly recommend it. I probably have bought it for some of you, but in it he loses 3 generations in his family in one accident: his wife, his mother, and 2 of his children. And he shares his own grief through this book with great vulnerability, yet writes of how life after such a tragedy is possible, one marked by spiritual depth, joy, compassion, and a really deep appreciation for the small blessings and small moments. And in one chapter, and this, I was sobbing. In one chapter, he writes at length about how the moments he missed the most were the regular, everyday, normal moments. We're talking about moments of eating toast together. Moments like even with our kids growing up, Jake made pancakes like so many Saturday mornings. And these are thick pancakes. They're thick. And I think that the kids, as they've grown, I imagine that every time they have a pancake, they may think of those mornings with us. Just simple, ordinary moments. And when I look back at my own life, one of my biggest regrets, again, I'm speaking as both a mother and a daughter today, I grieve the times I wasn't truly present with others. And we live in such a distracted age. I grieve those times, and I grieve the loss of others' presence, people that I took for granted that would be here always, and life or circumstances and sometimes even death has removed them from my life. Being grateful for the everyday small and simple moments is such a gift. Another gift that I think comes in smallness and simplicity is humility. Accepting that we are small, we are human, we are limited, we are prone to wander. It frees us up to accept the grace and mercy of God. Why are we always trying to make it that we don't need grace and mercy when these are two of the things that God gave us freely? And yet we're living life in such a way that we are always trying to be in a place where we don't need it. But our spirits, they long for grace and mercy. And so when we accept that he's still working on us, that we're still in process, that it's okay, we're going to make mistakes, it's so freeing. It's so freeing. There was a song, like I said, I was a music major. I think the biggest accomplishment in that season was learning the lyrics to all those songs. I am not a lyric person. Jake and my daughter, they know the lyrics to like a song they heard 15 years ago. This morning I was trying to sing along in the worship practice, and I just was singing like I was scatting worship because I didn't know the lyrics. But there's one song that I learned in Sunday school that I sing to myself all the time, and I'm going to sing it for you. And if you know it, you got to join in with me. You ready? Okay. He's still working on me. Anybody? To make me what I ought to be. I hear someone. It took him just a week to make the moon and the stars, the sun and the earth and Jupiter and Mars. How loving and patient he must be, 'cause he's still working on me. Thank you. Music major right here. No, that is just, I do things all the time where I just am like, oh, I'm not the best at this. Even, like planting a church. I would say planting a church is a incredibly humbling experience. And yet it's so good. And I'm so thankful for it. And I think of who I was before I planted a church with Jake and others, and I'm so grateful for those humbling moments. Living in humility is such a gift. And again, I think we resist it a lot, but it really is a gift. Another gift with living simply and small is perspective. Recognizing our smallness compared to his greatness helps us stop trying to control things. I love control, almost as much as I love toast and jelly. But it's really, it's such a pit. Because the more we try to control, the deeper the pit goes. And the more we're distracted from being present. It's just this cycle. I have this thing I do, and I've maybe shared this with some of you. And maybe when I was younger, I wouldn't have felt this. But when I start to feel overwhelmed and I want to control things, I actually zoom out, and I imagine that I'm in space, and I'm looking at the earth, and I'm just so small, and I'm just hovering in space, looking at the earth. And knowing that even in the Bible it says that the earth is the Lord's footstool. And I'm like, why do I think I can even control an ounce of anything? And that perspective of his bigness and my smallness, it doesn't make me feel unimportant or not special, because I know I'm so loved by him, and he's the main character of my story. And when I put that perspective in my mind, suddenly I have this sense of awe that the God who created this huge earth and these galaxies, that same wonder and mystery that we find in the universe is also the wonder and mystery that we can approach our own lives with. And that is such a gift. It's such a gift because I don't want to control my story. I mean, I do, but I don't because I honestly can't write a good story like he can. He is a good story writer. And so trusting that my small and ordinary, being present in the day, can culminate in the story that he is building brings such joy, and it is truly a gift. I mentioned earlier there are places and moments that I've been welcomed into that really kind of blow my mind. And honestly, every time we gather, and I love this church and I love you, I'm so blown away that we get to do this. And I know, like, in those moments, it's God who opened the door, who used me, who made me the way he made me so that he could orchestrate his purpose. But I still am more Jesus, less me. Big God, small Michele. And through the big moments and small, I need him daily. I just need him daily. Just like I eat that toast every morning. I could do a whole message about toast. I just love toast. But I don't just have one piece and I think it's going to last me for the year. Every day I get our really, really bad toaster out. It's so cheap. And I make toast. I have to push it down a couple times, and I like it a little burnt. And then I get my jelly out. Sometimes I do this in the middle of the night because I can't wait till morning. It's true. And I usually make a little, mess of jelly. But no matter what, I have my toast every day. And so I think sometimes when it comes to just our spiritual nourishment, the way we feed our souls, we're willing to skip a meal. We're willing to maybe not make the bread of life available in those moments. And no matter what's going on in life, the quiet and the loud, the busy and the slow, the upfront and hidden, I've learned that I do need him every moment. I need him every day. And in the account of Matthew, Jesus shows us how to live he's so good. He was so good. He showed us so many things. But he showed us how to live in relationship with God and the kind of posture and attitude that helps us live this abundant, full life he's promised. And in Matthew 6:1, Jesus encourages us to pray by asking God to give us today our daily bread. And in Jesus' day, workers were commonly just paid at the end of the day because there was no refrigeration, which makes me sad for lots of reasons, especially ice cream. I don't think there was probably ice cream. There was no refrigeration. And so how it would work is you'd work all day, and then hopefully you'd be paid those day's wages, and then you would go out and you would get food provision for each day. And so Jesus, I think, understood. He understood our concern for daily food, the need for provision, but I think he was more concerned about the hunger and needs of our souls, that kind of daily bread. Jesus also said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. What a promise. And we do need him daily, just like we need food and water. Our need for him is so big, just like our need for nourishment and sustenance. We need to have continual reliance on him for both the big and the small days. He will supply. That is his promise. So earlier when we talked about the showbread in the holy place, it symbolized presence, provision, and purpose. These are all things that Jesus provides. He is our daily bread, and we need to go to him each day. If you open my Bible, you would find lyrics from a song written. I have lots of little notes in my Bible. And the song it's a song that was sung from the perspective of Mary. I just happened to hear it and became an anthem of sorts for my life. And so Mary, a young woman, she lived a small but faithful life. And because of who God is, he orchestrated a purpose over her life that she could never imagine, one where she would be a mother, the mother of Jesus, but one that would impact all of humanity. So a very simple, ordinary life that would impact all of humanity. And so as a mother, she has this prayer to Jesus, and this song goes, and these are the words written in my Bible. I am not brave, I'll never be. The only thing my heart can offer is a vacancy. I'm just a girl, nothing more, but I am willing, and I am yours. And so, in several pages of my Bible, when I'm in a hard season and I'm reading something and I'm going to his word for that daily bread, you might see scrawled in the margin, I am willing and I am yours. And I just want to encourage all of you, not just the women, the daughters in the place, to be like Mary, to live a simple, faithful life, giving your heart fully to him, and let God birth in you his purposes, both in the small and the big moments, because you will have both. And trusting that the bread of life will sustain and supply and meet every need as it comes. So worship team, if you want to come on up, we have a song. This was the song that I was singing without really knowing the words. But today, I want you to think about the small and simple things in your life that you can be thankful for. And understanding that those things are possibly purposes spoken over you, that maybe these things that you just have on your list, oh, I do this every day, it's actually a really important part of your life. And as we go to our cupboards and our refrigerators for nourishment, he wants to nourish you. He says, I am the bread of life. And so as we sing today, this is how I thank the Lord for what you've given me. What has he given you? Because he's given you things to be thankful for. He's given you spaces to have purpose in. And again, I think sometimes we can be looking, the grass is greener, right? If this was in place, I'd be so much happier. I'd have so much purpose. I'd be so much more fulfilled. But he can fill you right where you're at. And so if you want to stand, let's stand together and be thinking about those small spaces in your life that he has gifted you with.